Lately, I've been obsessed with character archetypes, and I realized that I have been unconsciously writing my characters into very specific ones, so of course I want to talk about it. But first, let me tell you what an archetype is. An archetype is a universal pattern of character that shows up across stories, cultures, and time periods. It turns out that people have been telling stories across millennia, and these archetypes show up no matter the time, no matter the place, and no matter the kind of story that you're telling. So they have become this foundational energy in storytelling, and they are not tropes and they are not personality labels. It's interesting because they are very, very interesting storytelling tools, since they each have a shadow or imbalanced form and a balanced or integrated form. So that gives you an implicit character arc right there. It's also interesting that they have been imbued in storytelling since the very beginning of storytelling. So I've been reading a lot of different resources, and I have the first one here, which is The Hero of a Thousand Faces. Then from there, I found this one, The Virgin's Promise, which is very interesting. This is specifically for female archetypes. And then I found this, Writing Archetypal Characters, and this one, which is 45 Master Characters. These all talk about different archetypes, so I'm using a mix of all of them and other resources that I found that I will link in the description, and mixing mythology and 20th century authors, and like I said, each archetype has a shadow form and an integrated form that gives you a complete character arc that you can use for your story. And I specifically am working with 7 masculine and 7 feminine archetypes, and I'm gonna tell you the definition of each archetype, which character plays into that, and why. And the first one is the Queen. The Queen represents sovereignty, stability, and leadership within relationship and community. She values loyalty, commitment, and legitimacy. The Queen expects to be treated with respect and to be chosen deliberately. She understands structure and often holds social or relational power. In healthy form, she creates order and expects mutual devotion. In shadow form, she can become controlling, reacting to perceived betrayal, or overly focused on status and recognition. Her strength lies in dignity and her ability to define the terms of her domain. So the character that plays into this archetype is my female main character from book 1. Her name is Tessa, and she matches the Queen because she's built for bonds and for loyalty and for long-term attachment, and she's looking for real partnership. She doesn't want casual ambiguity. She reacts very strongly when she senses distance or instability within the group or within her relationships. However, she does something in the very first chapter that puts her in danger of being in her shadow form, because the thing that she doesn't want, which is casual ambiguity, she's the one that asks for it because she's afraid. So it becomes, or she thinks it is, a protective strategy, but I mean, it gives her the illusion of control, but it directly contradicts what she really wants, which is partnership and honesty. And her counterpart is the King. The King represents order, responsibility, and stewardship. His core function is to create stability and structure for others. A healthy king is grounded and decisive, able to hold authority without insecurity. He understands that leadership is service, not ego. His strength lies in presence and reliability rather than force. When disordered, the king becomes controlling, emotionally distant, or tyrannical, confusing protection with domination. At his best, he creates safety and helps others grow under his guidance. And that is my main male character for book 1. His name is Chase. And Chase, he is a natural leader, and he takes the role of the anchor in his little social group. He's strategic. He is the playmaker, let's say, in his rugby team. He is very protective of his friends and his family, and he maintains composure under pressure. But he's very emotionally repressed, and he has been in love with Tessa for 6 years, since they met when they were 18 in college, and they are now 24. He's very repressed, and this comes from a misguided sense of steadiness, because he believes that vulnerability can throw you off, if that makes sense. So he's very controlled, but control for him comes from a place of responsibility, not from dominating other people. So that's why he's the king, and he starts in his shadow form. So these two characters, they both start in their shadow form. The king starts quiet when he's exposed, afraid of vulnerability, and the queen tries to secure her bond through tests and rules that contradict what she really wants, because she is also trying to protect herself. So their growth is learning to share sovereignty, and Chase learns how to be emotionally present, and Tessa learns to be direct and to ask for the commitment that she yearns for, without being on the defense. They have both to learn vulnerability and to let each other in, and to communicate assertively and ask what they want, and that's their growth arc. That was book 1. I already have book 2 and 3 planned. In book 2, we have the female main character. She is going to be the archetype of the Sage. The Sage embodies intellect, discernment, and clarity. She leads with thought rather than emotion and values knowledge, strategy, and competence. The Sage is observant, analytical, and often composed. She seeks truth and prefers reason over impulse. In healthy form, she brings wisdom and practical solutions. In shadow form, she may become emotionally distant, overly critical, or dismissive of vulnerability. Her strength lies in perception and rational authority. And this is Queen. Queen matches the Sage because her life is structured around achievement and legacy. She is the very rich daughter of very rich parents who have treated her like a showpiece instead of a person. They see her kind of an extension of their own achievements. So she has learned from the beginning that love comes with strings, and those strings take the shape of achievement and performance. So while she is very smart, she doesn't necessarily want to she doesn't want the strings, essentially. She acts from a place of strategy and from a place of intellect, and her learning arc is to understand and live within her emotions. Her counterpart in this book is the Warrior. The Warrior embodies action, discipline, and confrontation. His instinct is to move toward conflict rather than away from it. He enforces boundaries and protects what he values through decisive action. The Warrior thrives in environments that demand courage, endurance, and clarity. He values loyalty and strength, and he is often physically aggressive in how he navigates the world. When unbalanced, he becomes reactive, aggressive, or locked into black and white thinking. In his healthy form, he channels intensity into defense, protection, and principled action. And Reed embodies this archetype because he is wired to step in when in presence of the abuse of power. So, for example, I have the whole background of these characters already in my mind, and one anecdote about this character is that when he was like 12, he saw two older boys, like maybe 15, bullying an 11-year-old. So he stepped in, and even though he was younger and smaller than these two, he confronted them, and he was beaten up, but he gave back as much as he received. He is confrontational. He doesn't shy away from a fight, and his instinct is to protect the vulnerable because he was vulnerable once, and he's doing what he wishes someone had done for him when he was in that place. He is very hot-headed, but it's not random. It comes from growing up in an unstable home with an alcoholic, abusive father and a mother that abandoned him, so he didn't even have a mother. So this background sharpened his sense of justice, and he feels compelled to act when something happens in front of him. And this is, I think, that my most inherently combustible couple, and they are very fun because in the beginning, Reed is reactive and he wants immediate justice and immediate action, while Queen is very cold and controlling and acts all superior when she feels threatened and when things are emotionally messy. But later in the process, they each balance each other. So he learns discipline, not in general because he is a professional sportsman, but he learns to be more restrained, I would say, and she becomes more in tune with her emotions, and she learns how to leave her warmth, let's say it like that. And yeah, this relationship is, I love them. Reed learns softness. They both learn softness, not from each other, because neither of them is soft. They learn together that the softness that lives in them is not a bad thing. And then I have two more archetypes in book 3, and they are the Maiden and the Lover. The Maiden represents emergence, curiosity, and becoming. She's open, hopeful, emotionally responsive, and still forming her identity. The Maiden energy carries optimism and adaptability, often moving through the world with trust and a belief in possibility. She's not naive by default, but she does approach life as something still unfolding. Her growth centers on awakening to depth and integrating experience into maturity. In shadow form, she can avoid reality, cling to fantasy, or perform likeness to avoid pain. In her healthy expression, she evolves without losing her sense of wonder. And Cassie, my female main character of book 3, she embodies this archetype because she presents like this bright, very playful, very emotionally expressive person, with a very strong, let's keep things moving attitude. But she is very positive on the surface because she's hiding a lot of grief and a lot of pain, and she has been doing that since she was a teen, because she has been unable to process the grief she felt when her mother died. So that grief is under the surface of everything she does, and she is an artist, and she is learning how to balance that joy with the grief that she feels, so that she can express both in a healthy manner, in a way that one doesn't just kill the other, essentially. So her arc is a little bit different to textbook Maiden, because the Maiden is living innocence, essentially, losing innocence and maturing, while Cassie's arc is more about learning how to live with the full range of her emotions instead of protecting others and herself from them. And her counterpart in this book is the Lover, and the Lover is driven by connection and experience. He wants to feel deeply and to merge emotionally with the world around him. This archetype brings passion, sensuality, and emotional richness into any environment. The Lover is attuned to beauty, romance, and intimacy, and he often seeks closeness rather than distance. When healthy, he is devoted, creative, and emotionally available. When distorted, he can become obsessive, dependent, or addicted to intensity, mistaking emotional highs for lasting connection. His strength lies in vulnerability and depth of feeling. And this is my character, Sawyer. I love this character. It's funny, his name is Sawyer, and that is the name of my dead dog. But I don't know, I think that the name just fits him. And the thing with Sawyer is that he's a flirt. If this was a historical romance, he would be called a rake. And the thing is that he grew up very much loved by his parents, but his home was unstable in a different way than Reed's background, because his parents are very loving, but they didn't have any structure. So he grew up thinking or believing that love is that instantaneous gratification, and he never learned how to be steady in his emotions. So that's his learning curve on the third book. That is going to be the thing that he's going to learn with Cassie. And this pairing is basically joy versus performed joy versus performed intensity, because he does want stability. He just doesn't know how to do it, how to reach for things that he wants to stay in his life, because he is constant movement. And what he needs to learn in this story is how to stay and how to choose the other person each and every day. So I love them. I love this couple. So yeah, they each learn. She learns that he is a safe place where she can unload emotions, and he learns that he can be steady, and he can that being steady is a form of intimacy, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be chasing highs every day. That's his learning, or their learning arc. I left several other archetypes out because they are secondary characters in the series, but I'm going to leave the list here, and I will probably leave it in the description section. But I am obsessed. Now everything that I read, I want to break into archetypes. Hello, Minita. I want to break everything into archetypes. Like, for example, in the Kings of Sin series that I'm reading by Ana Juan, I can tell you that Dante and Vivian are king and queen. Kai is also king, but in a different aspect than Dante. But Isabella in book 2, she is the maiden. Book 3, Dominic and Alessandra, they are also king and queen, but they start in very different places than Dante and Vivian. Book 4 are Xavier and Sloan. And Xavier, I'm pretty much sure that he's the Jester, and Sloan is the Huntress. And book 5, from what I have read, I have only skimmed that one, he is Vuk Markovic, he is the Outlaw. And Ayana, I think she's a queen, but I will know more once I read the book. And another series that I have been reading is the Boston Bulls by Brittany Nicole. And the Langfield brothers specifically, I can tell you that Beckett is a king and Olivia is a queen / mother, because you can have mixed archetypes. Book 2 of the Langfield brothers is Gavin and Millie, and Gavin is very much the lover, and Millie is the maiden. And I think that Gavin starts in his balanced form, and Millie is the one that needs to do the growing in that book. Then that was book 3. Book 2 is Brooks and Sarah, and Brooks I think is the warrior, and I'm pretty sure that Sarah is the lover in that book, because there's female lover and male lover. And in the last book of the Langfield brothers, there are Aiden and Lennox, and I'm sure that Aiden is the Jester with a dash of the lover, and Lennox seems like the Huntress. So I am obsessed. Everything that I read, I want to break it into archetypes. So if you want to hear me ramble more about archetypes, or hear me ramble about a specific series, tell me in the comments. And if this was useful and the resources that I'm going to list in the description are useful, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!